Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live. It is Thursday, January 28th, 2021, and it is 8 o'clock, so it is time to get started. As you know, I'm going quicker to the share screen, get started immediately. And here we are, share screen. It'll take about 10 seconds to get started. And there we go. We're ready to go. Let me go to my PowerPoint. And let's get started. As you know, I start every presentation with this slide. Vamos começar. Let's get started. Actually, you know that let means deixar. Deixar. This is a polite way of saying, can we start? So, or do you want to start? So, all right, we'll look at that later. And tonight, the presentation is called Abraham, the Early Years. Now, early can be cedo or in breve, but the early years means os primeiros anos. You don't have this in Portuguese. You would say that os primeiros anos. Então, now what do we know about Abraham? Important figure, this guy Abraham. What do we know? His father's name is Terah. I don't know how to pronounce that in Hebrew, but there it is. And now parent. I wanted to go a little bit over family. So father is pai. So in English, we have two parents, mãe e o pai. So when we only have two, mãe ou pai. In Portuguese, a parent would be pai. Pai deve acompanhar seu filho. Então, so in this case, it would be a parent, not a father, but a parent. So, and grandparent is avó. Nossa, to me, it's the same word. I always put uma ou minha avó ou meu avó. Então, it's confusing in Portuguese. Avó. It's the same thing. And then we have great-grandparent. This would be your bisavó. Então, now Abraham was the great-grandson, 8 greats, of Noah. So this is 10 generations from Noah, Abraham was. And o nome dele era Noé? Então, welcome to Portuguese, Pedro. Now, what else do we know about him? Ainda, or mais ou outro, what else do we know about Abraham? Well, he was from Ur. Now, in English, we say like just the letter R, He's from lazy vowel. His original name was Abram. And the name Abram means exalted father. And you know this word in Portuguese, exaltado, pai exaltado, exalted father. And he is highly respected in 3 religions. Which ones are they? They're Judaism, obviously, Christianity, and Islam. Islam. Remember, Emi no final. Say the Emi. We need to say that. Islam. Now, Islam, here you say it's spelled Islam, but we say in English, Islam. Anyhow, now where was Ur? Where was Ur? You know, that's a good question. Because there were many cities called Ur back then. It's like Springfield in the United States. I think every state has Springfield. Even, what's that cartoon? The Simpsons is in Springfield. So there are many cities called Ur. And the Bible says he was from Ur of the Chaldeans. Now remember, in English, we're going to say that Ur the Chaldeans. So you can't hear this. So we need to practice this all the time. Ur the Chaldeans. Ur the Chaldeans. All right, everybody at home, Ur the Chaldeans. All right. This is in the area around Babylon in Iraq. It's not in, but it's around Babylon. Now, when did Abraham live? When did he live? Well, it depends on who you talk to. Some people think around 1900 BC. Now, this is 1900. We can say 1900, but in English, we say 1900 if there are 2 zeros. So here it's 1900, 1900 BC. And other people think around 2200 BC. Então, 2200 BC. Então, well, there's no consensus. Nobody knows. We have an idea, but there's no consensus. Now you know this number, or this word, consensus, consenso, Portuguese. Now in Genesis 12 is where the story basically starts. The Lord said to Abram, leave your country and your people. There's the other deixar, leave. We need to know this. In English, we have leave and let. Leave, left, left. All right. Leave your father's family and go to the country that I will show you. Well, where's that? No, he doesn't know. God will tell him later. Now, why did God do this? Well, he tells us in the next verse, I will build a great nation from you, not for you, but from you. I will bless you and make your name famous, apparently, in 3 religions. Now, make is, is fazer. Make your name famous. So this is one of the causative verbs I've talked about. Make, get, and have. We'll talk about those later. Not today, but later. People will use your name to bless other people. And I will bless those who bless you. Now, here I highlighted bless. Bless is abençoar. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. So curse and bless, the opposites. Bless, abençoar, and curse, amaldiçoar. Maldiçoar. I hope that's correct. And I will curse those who curse you. I will bless those who bless you. So there's nothing in between. I will use you to bless all the people on earth. How is that possible? And this is for another day. I will use you to bless all the people on earth. Now, where was Abram at the time? Where was Abram? At the time, he was living in a city called Nahor. Nahora, but Nahor. Anyhow, we know this from chapter 11, at the end of chapter 11. 11:31, Terah took his family and left Ur. There's leave, left. There's the tempo pasado. Ur of the Chaldeans. There it is again, Ur of the Chaldeans. All right. Now, I was working yesterday. Is there anything wrong with this? Yes, there is. Now, this is, I worked yesterday. We need to use the simple past. Because when we use the tempo continuo pasado, we need to have a point of reference, ponto de referencia. And here, of course, we know this is wrong. I was working when Pedro called. So this is one point in time in the past. And this is very strict in English. It's not like Portuguese. Some exceptions are okay, but 99%, we need to say, I worked yesterday. Now, all the time, we need to say, I worked yesterday. So here, the 2 points of reference. At the time, he was living in a city called Nahor. So at the time, he was living. Anyhow, Genesis 12:4. What does that say? So Abram left Haran. There it is, left again. Just like the Lord said. Now, just, people have questions about this word, just, somente. Well, just like, igual. So, or igual, like, como mesmo. In this case, just like the Lord said. So Abram. So here's, so is então. So Abram left Haran. Now, Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. So he's old at the time. All right. And he brought Lot with him. Lot is part of his family. He was Abraham's nephew. In this case, Abram's nephew. And nephew is sobrinho, and your niece is called sobrinha. Sobrinho, sobrinha, in Portuguese, nephew and niece. So they both start with N. in English and S in Portuguese. Então, that's nice, Pedro, but where did they go? Well, let's find out. Then he and his group moved to the land of Canaan. So here they moved, he and his group, Abram. Now, Abram traveled through the land, Tehenu, as far as, we've looked at this in the past, as igualdade. But here's as far as can be. So Ate, the town of Shechem, and then to the big tree at Moreh. And so this must be a really big tree. Everybody knows the big tree at Moreh. It happens. In my city, there was a tree that was well known, but for another reason. Now, I don't want to tell that reason tonight and use up time. So then to the big tree at Moreh. Now, we have to remember, there were no real cities at the time. Even the biggest cities in Cairo and Damascus did not have very many people at the time. So there were no real cities at the time, no nessa época. And many of the cities, there it is again, let's practice at home, many of the cities at the time of Abraham, probably were little more than extended families, pouco mais que famílias estendidas. I'm hoping that's correct. So they weren't very big. And the kings of these cities and countries were probably the grandfather or great grandfather in this extended family. It just weren't very many people in these cities. To give you an idea, 2000 later, Rome, at the most, no maximo, Rome only had 1 million people at the most. There's only somente. And Jerusalem only had 100,000. So these were not big cities. I think you have many cities in São Paulo, not São Paulo, but in the no interior that have 1 million people. So it's common for us, but then 1 million is a big city. In Jerusalem, only 100,000, but still that's a lot. Now let's look at this as. I promised earlier, these are equalities. Equalities. For example, Pedro is as smart as Einstein. Now, it can be Einstein, depending if you're English, British English, they say Einstein. In German, that's pronounced Einstein. So I prefer the German version. Pedro is as smart as Einstein. And here's a picture of Einstein, a person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new. How true. We need to look at everything differently. So this guy is pretty smart. And so is Pedro, whoever he is. Pedro is a smart guy. All right. I don't know who that could be. All right. So Pedro is as fast as Usain Bolt. So here's as fast as. And well, let's take a look at this picture. Oh, there. Looky there. I think Pedro is faster than Usain Bolt. That's not true. Look at Pedro is winning. Whoever he is. I hope you have a PC. You're watching on PC or laptop because it's hard to see on your smartphone. So, hey, Pedro is faster. He's not as fast as the igualdade. No, Pedro is faster than Usain Bolt. Now here, hey, Pedro is as strong as Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's see what we have here. Let's see here. Oh, there's a picture of when I was young, or when Pedro was younger, 5 years ago, when Pedro had hair. All right. Now, where did he go next, Pedro? Where did Abram go next? Well, let's find out. He went to many places. Where were they? Well, eventually, he went to many places, actually, and I don't want to use time. He ended up Akabar, back in Canaan. Now, this is Israel today. So he ended up back in Canaan. All this took place. We've looked at these two verbs before. Acontecer, after Abram got married. So Abram had a wife. I didn't put it here. Sorry, I wanted to put the family members, but I didn't put husband and wife. You probably know this. All right. Now, verse 7, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I will give this land to your descendants. Now, let's take a look at the map. Where was this land? So here you see where it says Sumer. That is where Ur is. So Abram passed Babylon, which was a major city back then. It doesn't say anything about Babylon. He passed it and he went to Haran. Now, and then at age 75, God calls him to Israel or Canaan in the south. But why did he go around like this? Well, there's a big desert in the middle, and it's very hard to negotiate. So it looks like Abram's family took the Euphrates River. They stayed close to the river just to be safe. And then he went down to Canaan. So, but there is another Ur to the north of Haran. You can think whatever you want, but here it says Ur the Chaldean. So we know the Bible says that it's in the south, so we're going to use that. Now let's fast forward. There it is again. Let's vamos or deixar-nos. Yeah. Fast forward. Remember this on your VCR. Fast forward. Avanzar rápido. I don't know if that was on your VCR. VCR. You younger people might remember VCR. Modern technology back then. So let's not go to Genesis 15. And it says, after all these things happened, the word of the Lord, there it is again, word of the Lord, word of the Lord, word of the Lord, everybody at home, word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. God said, Abram, don't be afraid. There it is again, con medo, from last week and many weeks. I will defend you and give you a great reward. Recompensa. Anyhow, but Abram wasn't happy. What? How can he not be happy? Abram said, Lord God, there is nothing you can give me that will make me happy because I have no son. And we will look at this later, not today, but later. There's nothing you can give me that will make me happy. Anyhow, my slave Eliezer from Damascus will get everything I own after I die. Remember, slave is escravo. Here we are. Slave is escravo, and slavery is the institution, escravidão. And back then, nessa época, was not like slavery nowadays. Today, slavery is considered wrong. It is wrong. On every level, it's wrong because we don't. But back then, it was treated differently. It was more like a permanent job. It says slave, but it's not a good word for it. And many people, most of the slaves, there it is again, most of the slaves preferred slavery. So let's repeat this again at home. Most of the slaves, they preferred slavery. It was a permanent job. You didn't have that in the small towns and here you had an opportunity and you knew everything was provided. It was much better than the alternative for many of the slaves easily, but there's a different connotation. So we can't think that slavery was considered right. It's just our definition of slavery is different today than 2,000 years ago or more when this was written. Anyhow, how do we know he wasn't happy? Well, he repeated himself. There's our reflexive for today. And repeat, everybody knows. Abram said, you have given me no son. He's complaining again. So a slave born in my house will get everything I have. Ooh, Abram was rich. So Eliezer is slave. Oh, he's so He's hoping Abram doesn't have any more children. He's probably thinking, oh, Abram's 75. I'm going to get everything. He's too old. His wife is too old. Old Jemais. Now here's an expression in English. Abram was probably crying his eyes out. And that has been in many songs, country songs, crying my eyes out over you. So crying his eyes out. I don't know, out. They say diritaron. I don't know how you can cry your eyes out, but welcome to American English. Then the Lord spoke to Abram and said, that slave will not be the one to get what you have. You will have a son. 70, he's more than 75 now, who will get everything you own. He's very old. I think he's 86 at the time. You will have a son. 86, he's old, who will get everything you own. So, and that's very important in these times. Herança, I don't know what you call that here in Portuguese, for the oldest son. It's important to give your oldest son everything. All right, verse 5. Then God led Abram, remember this, led Abram outside and said, look at the sky, see the many stars. Here now we see two verbs, look at and see. Now, there are so many that you cannot count them. Now, here is so. So, remember, so, tão, tanto. And if we use so, então, so as então, then we need that little explicaçãozinha. There are so many that you cannot count them. There are so many that you cannot count them. Your family will be like that, assim. Your family will be like that. Scoop, I forgot to make that italics. Now watch, see, and look at. Oof. Usually, look at is olhar para, as we saw. Look at the sky and see the stars. But for look at is something you do in an instant or just once. But see, ver, you continue looking at something. So he's looking at all the stars. He sees all the stars. So it's a longer time. It's looking at for a long time. Then watch is assistir. By the way, see, saw, seen. I didn't put that on this on the here, but watch is regular. Watch is assistir. And what is that? That's when you keep looking at something that is moving. And this is very general. Now, for movies, we use the same verb, see and watch. Did you see the movie last night, or did you watch the movie? For television, that's a little strange. How do you define that? It's your television doesn't move, but the players in the game are moving. So we use see and watch, and it's not consistent. But when in doubt, quando em dúvida, you can always use these. Olhar para, ver would be look at, ver would be see, and assistir, watch. So a few exceptions, but you're safe if you use these verbs in English. All right, verse 6. Abram believed the Lord, and because of this faith, the Lord accepted him as righteous. Because of this faith. And you know this as faith. The Lord accepted him as righteous. Now your righteous is justo. He said to Abram, I am the Lord who led you. There it is, led, levo, from Ur of the Chaldeans. I did this so that, there's another so that, para que, I could give you this land. You will own, possuir, this land. We saw this earlier, this land, Teha. Now Abram was 75. His wife, Sarah, was old. Now, justice and righteousness, Portuguese is the same word. And justice, they're two different things, though, in English. Justice is blind. Now, this is a human institution, justice. Justice is blind. Why is it human? Because it knows how to count money. As you know, here, especially here in Brazil, you have money, you get justice, right? And justice goes first to the rich, obviously. And it's a human function. Now, contar In Portuguese, tell, told, or count. And it's strange, but in English, yes, it is possible to say tell or count, but it's 99% of Americans would look at you strange. But usually we have a word called recount, and that's when you retell something, and it's probably the only time, but it's extremely rare for us to use count. Anyhow, count as there we are as contar, or the tell rather, is used rarely. Anyhow, righteousness though is a measure. Now measures medida from God. And this is how God measures us. So measure, medida or medir. This is how God measures us. It's absolute. You know this word. It is not a question of being good or bad. Here's our first gerund of the day. Remember, it's after the preposition of. It is not a question of being good or bad. Remember, the verb after the preposition, always gerund. It is a question of believing God, not believing in God, because everybody knows in their heart that there is a God. So there is a difference. So do you believe God? Not believe in, but do you believe God? Oh, here's something the Bible says. Well, you must be born again. Nacer de novo. So you must be born again. Here, remember in American English, when you're born, it is a passive voice. I was born. Portuguese, eu nasci. I did the work. In English, my mother did the work. So you must be born again. Do you believe that? That's the question. And Abram, or Abraham, was born again at the time he's Abram by his faith alone, nothing else but his faith. And we'll expand on this later. And so are we. Here's so again. So in this case is também. So are we. So are we. Anyhow, Abram had a big problem, or Abraham, as he is later, he had a big problem. He had no problems believing God. He had problems trusting God. And there's a big difference. Confiar e acreditar, crer, believe. He had no problems crer, acreditar. He had problems trusting. And next week we will look at Abraham's struggle. Probably. I'm thinking of something else, but you will know next week. Next week we will look at Abraham's struggle. Now, struggle is a luta. It's not a fight, but it can be, struggle can be dilemma. Dilemma. You have two lemmas that you're struggling. That can be a struggle. But trusting and believing are two different things. And he struggled with trusting. So ele lutou com. So it's a little strange, struggle, this word, because lutar can also be fight. And here he's not fighting, he's struggling. Just like us. Igualzinho. Nós. Assim, just like us. Então, here we will stop. Good night, everybody. I hope you enjoyed tonight's live. And we will see you next time, next Thursday night, or in class during the next week. So have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.